I met Aaron about this time, and I can already tell you I've seen a lot of improvement in NAVFAC scheduling since he got into that position 4 years ago. To where when I first arrived on island, it was pretty common for contractors not even be submitting schedules. To where Aaron has really just kind of slowly been turning this big ship of NAVFAC to just from the contractor side being a consultant and submitting these schedules to really formalize and streamline the process. We've been talking about getting him to give a presentation for a while, so I'm very glad that we're able to finally make this happen. With that, Aaron, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thanks, Will. Thanks for the introduction and the kind words. I'm not going to focus too much on myself and actually deflect some of the credit because I'm one person of the schedule working group that's a part of NAVFAC headquarters. So I'm one of several members, one representing each FEC across the world to basically build the NAVFAC construction schedule management program for our organization. So NAVFAC Hawaii is really a smaller part of the bigger overall organization, and definitely want to give credit to the rest of the schedule working group, my counterparts, that we all collaborate with one another, and we build the UFGS requirements, and then work with the project teams to implement the schedule requirements. So also want to thank Will and Mario for giving me this opportunity. I think it's great for NAVFAC and AACE to collaborate, partner. I feel like we're, in most ways all on the same boat of trying to support schedule management, support controls on our projects, the projects that we support, whether part of prime contractors or consulting or subcontractors, that we're in a sense all in this together. So I truly appreciate the opportunity to reach out and be a part of this and present to you folks today. So I just put up my my contact information there, my email address in the introduction here, as well as the site for the organization as part of the introduction to myself and NAVFAC. But getting back to the
Aaron, are you sharing screen? I'm not seeing it if you are.
Oh, maybe I got disconnected here.
Yeah, maybe just try share again.
Let me know when you see it.
Looks like it's coming up now.
Can you see it, Mario?
It's a black screen still. I think it's trying to share. It just hasn't come through yet. You seeing the same, Will?
I'm seeing a frozen image of me and you on a Teams meeting.
Yeah, Aaron, try stop share and then share it again, just to sort of reset it, and let's see if that does it. Okay, so far so good. There we go. Got it.
Okay, great. Always some technical difficulties along the way, but we'll get through it. And so we have the agenda here in P6 to help us keep on track. As any project that we've been on experiences some kind of difficulty, challenge, impact along the way, but hopefully to give you guys an idea of what we're going to go through here in the next 30 minutes or so, and then finally end up with some questions and discussion at the end. felt like I needed to take the opportunity here to, to get back in and be able to build a schedule. In my role for NAVFAC, I rarely have the chance to actually get in and build any kind of schedules in P6. So, getting back to, some previous roots of being able to build schedules here. So hopefully this is something that's familiar to a lot of you folks that, touch schedules on a regular basis. And then I've got the presentation notes here in the notebook section down here at the details, just so you guys can follow along. So I wanted to just jump over to the NAVFAC website here and just kind of briefly hit on some maybe some useful information here as far as the organization that I'm a part of. So if anybody wants to go back and get some additional information, the address is here, navfac.navy.mil. And I thought maybe some useful information here is off of this main screen is the acquisition strategies and forecasts. And if my internet behaves here, we'll be able to show you. But before it opens up, it basically gives a forecast of all the upcoming work. There is a disclaimer there that it's not a complete representation, and of course things can change as far as the funding availability and when projects actually get awarded and if they get awarded. But oh, there we go. We get the continued technical difficulties here, but hopefully you guys can get back to there. And what I'll do too is I'll paste the address into the chat so that everybody has the website available. And so what I was hoping to show you, and that was just the other page off of there, but it was kind of all the upcoming projects for NAVFAC worldwide, not just Hawaii. There is a way to sort and focus in on different regions, whether that is for NAVFAC Hawaii or any of the other facility engineering commands across the globe that has a upcoming project listing. So whether you're interested in getting involved with NAVFAC projects with your organization, or just getting an idea of the types of projects that NAVFAC gets involved with, this is a good website to go back to and learn more about NAVFAC and the projects that that NAVFAC supports. So this next section, I titled it the preamble, and it gets to the why of schedule management. So some of you may have seen this. It's slowly emerging, and it's actually part of the preliminary schedule meeting and the agenda that's been put together for that contract requirement that's in the current UFGS and should be applied to most of NAVFAC projects. But this really tries to aim to get to the connection between having a successful project, supporting the mission, supporting our commands, the different types of commands, from whether we're supporting the Marines, Air Force, missile defense, NSA, or just the regions, the Navy region Hawaii or other Navy regions, as far as the base facilities. That we want to make it clear that schedule management is key to fulfilling this. And we start off here with schedule management needs to be a collaborative effort.
Hey, Aaron.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. This is Mario again. Sorry about that. We're saying to some people in the chat that the screen is still frozen. Do you want to try maybe if we disable our cameras, because I know that probably takes up quite a bit of bandwidth. Maybe that might free up some bandwidth in order for the presentation to come through more cleanly.
Okay.
Want to give that a try? Now that we've seen your face, yeah, give that a shot.
Yeah, we're still seeing the website, I think, right now.
You're still seeing the website.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron, are you sharing your desktop or are you sharing the presentation? Because you can do either one. Looks like we're seeing your desktop.
So I'm currently showing the P6 agenda, and the preamble activity should be highlighted. So if you don't see the P6,
Yeah, so it may be, you may have it on another screen. If you want to unshare, then yeah, reshare.
Yeah.
Either the presentation or whichever desktop you want to show it, and then throw it on top of that desktop. It's typically what we do.
I'm going to try to reset my share here. So it looks like I went through the sharing again, and I have the piece.
Your Microsoft Teams screen is on top of the P6 screen. We can see just the borders of the P6 underneath the Microsoft Teams window.
Yeah, just like the last time, looks like it's frozen on whatever the last thing that it was.
Looks like he's trying to log back on.
Yeah, I was just about to say that's probably a smart thing to try. Yep, give it a minute, folks. No worries. See what we can get here.
I'm listening to you. I'm listening with you. Okay.
Mario, did Aaron by any chance give you a copy of his presentation?
It's in P6. He doesn't have slides.
Ah, I got you. Okay.
Yeah. Which I thought was pretty cool, but you know, a little non-standard, I guess.
Apologies, folks, for the technical difficulties. Hopefully he'll be able to log back on.
Mm-hmm. I just sent him a text. It went all great yesterday in our run through. So hopefully once he gets back on, it'll be all good.
Yeah.
While we're waiting for him, do we want to at least just mention our next event that's coming up in April? The cleanup.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. I mean, this is probably the largest group that we've had to show up for a webinar in a while. So first of all, thank you everyone for joining. For those that don't know me, my name is Mario Flores. I'm the secretary here for AACE Hawaii. So the emails that you'll typically come into your inbox from the AACE Hawaii section, that's me sending them out. And we just made an announcement recently in our newsletter email that we're finally hosting an in-person live event coming up in April. We'll be doing a cleanup at the Mauna Lua Bay. We're partnering with a nonprofit organization out there. So if you haven't seen that email, I'll be sending reminders pretty soon. But yeah, stay tuned for that. We're looking forward to seeing everyone in person again. Oh, and there's Aaron. Hey, we have you back, I think.
Okay, sorry guys. My Wi-Fi was working great for a long time and then just conked out. I'm on a hard connection now, so hopefully that,
Gotcha.
that takes
Okay.
care of it. And I'm going to try to
Okay.
reshare my screen again.
Okay, it's sharing. Yep.
Okay, so I got my P6 agenda back up. Can you see that?
Yeah, there we go. And you're on the
Okay.
preamble activity. Yep, there you go.
Okay, hopefully that takes care of things. Okay. So back to the preamble. So we're trying to infuse this into our projects, and like I said before, this is gonna be a part of our preliminary schedule meeting, which I'll give a glimpse of a little bit down the way here. But just getting back to making it a point, making it clear that the schedule management is key to fulfilling and supporting the success of our projects, success of our missions, because it's not just individual projects, it's overall mission when it comes to the any of our military commands, that whether we're just providing a small piece, whether it's connecting shore power, getting a shore power facility up and running, that it's it's a part of the bigger mission that we need to fulfill here, and certainly schedule management is a part of that. So I know I may be speaking to preaching to the choir with many of you folks, and certainly in the roles that you guys are in, you certainly bought into schedule management. But wanted to show that as being a key part of where NAVFAC is headed with the construction schedule management program. So this next part gets into just pointing out the UFGS, and in particular the 01-3217. Many of you are probably very familiar with the 01-3217 specifications, but maybe some of you haven't been involved with NAVFAC projects or any other Department of Defense or government agencies that also use the 01-3217. So just wanted to provide some groundwork there as far as accessing the current UFGS is through the whole building design guide. And I've given the website there, and just kind of a little clip here, or a little snapshot of the main screen and how to get there, just to get back to the path of under Federal Facility Criteria, Department of Defense, and then the UFGS. And so from there, it's going to give you all the list of all the UFGS. And so here's the cost loaded network analysis schedule dedicated page to this section. And so it has the PDF version of that, and then it gives the updates, or it gives the kind of an update status. When was the most recent release? In this case, it's August 2020, and it's got a change 3 in it. So if anything, just know that this UFGS does get updated. From this, we're on about either a 1 year or 2 year average of making some kind of update, some kind of change to the UFGS. So just know that it does change. Some I've noticed have been involved with NAVFAC projects. Go away for a little bit and then come back, and then in that time, the UFGS, in particular the 01-3217 for schedule requirements, does get updated. So whether it's just the overall project team or the schedulers that are involved with the projects in particular, I find myself having to just remind everybody, make sure that you're checking your project specific specifications for schedule requirements, because they do change. And like I mentioned, I'm part of the schedule working group under NAVFAC headquarters, and we do work to continually work on these specifications. So it is kind of a eternal work in progress, with looking at lessons learned, trying to clarify, trying to always make more clear the expectations that NAVFAC in particular is looking for when it comes to schedule management. So we've got a really robust, I believe, a really robust set of requirements here. And then also included is the contractor baseline schedule review checklist and the monthly update schedule review checklist that in this recent change have now become part of the UFGS, where it's actually specifically referenced and a part of the UFGS. So that's probably one of the bigger changes that we've got to the UFGS currently. But I recommend if you guys are interested, if anybody's interested in NAVFAC projects, haven't been in, on NAVFAC projects, to take a look at what we have as far as our requirements for schedule management in the UFGS, and to be able to come back to this. What I kind of always stress too is just I think the more we can communicate to the overall industry, to our prime contractors, to our organizations that we're a part of, is that there's a lot here and need to be incorporated into the project, and going back to RFP stage and solicitation and response to that solicitation and bidding the work. I think if we can spread the word to everybody out there that there's a lot of expectations in here, and so just before the project is bidded, awarded, that our contractors, the personnel that are involved in the project can start planning for that, those requirements and the amount of resources that it may take, including the designated project scheduler and their involvement in the project to just provide the basic requirements of the baseline schedule, the updates, the TIAs, because there's a lot here. So I think we've transitioned where before it was I found a lot more of or asking the questions, okay, who's going to be managing these requirements? And oftentimes I found that it was the contractor's QC manager, that was kind of part of their collateral duties among managing the day-to-day operations and quality control of the project, to also be responsible for updating the schedule and fulfilling those roles and responsibilities when it comes to the schedule. Some projects that may work, and certainly there are people out there that can fill both of those roles. But when you get to a certain size of project, complexity of project, oftentimes that doesn't work. So again, recommend that if you haven't taken a look at the UFGS for schedules, to come back to this. And so the specifications really provide the foundation, the solid foundation that we're looking for in our schedules, and meeting the basic requirements. But there's a plus side to that. There's also what we're calling out as credible schedules, and it's adopting that from the overall industry, and there's certainly white papers out there and discussion about credible schedules. So we're kind of looking beyond just meeting the basic requirements, but getting to that point where we're actually getting to what's considered a credible schedule. And so some of that is hard to put into UFGS format that, you do X, Y, and Z, and you're gonna, automatically get, a credible schedule. But I think it starts there with identifying that there's something above and beyond that makes that creates this environment that schedules are actually adding value to the project, and not just so much a billing tool or documenting the progress of the project, but actually being able to manage the project, and helping all stakeholders on the project, and not just serving a limited set of functions. So I have a short video here, and again, I might be preaching to the choir of credible schedules, why we need them, but again, to show you that this is being incorporated into NAVFAC's culture, into our schedule management program, and just to give you guys a sense of what we're in a sense we're preaching to our folks, on the government side. So Mario, if you could help me out and share your screen and queue up the video.
Yep.
Just
Let's get
asking
this
Mario
right off.
because I couldn't play the sound.
Yeah, here we go. So this should work. Let me know in the chat if the volume is too high or too loud. I should be able to adjust that, but here we go.
As a NAVFAC construction manager, you'll play a pivotal role in NAVFAC project success. Construction schedule
Raise the volume a little.
plays a very important part to a successful project. Essential to successful construction schedule management are your cost-loaded schedules. Ensure that the contractor is submitting an updated schedule for every month of the period of performance, beginning with 30 days after the contract award date. Oracle's Primavera P6 is a powerful scheduling tool for all stakeholders to use, but is only effective if the cost-loaded schedules are credible. This training will explain NAVFAC construction schedule checklists, their use, and their central role in obtaining credible schedules. And taking this one step further, Primavera P6 will provide you with the tools to easily develop risk management techniques which will help keep the project on track. So, what is a credible schedule? Essentially, a credible schedule is one that, at any given data date, is a true plan forward, includes an accurate record of past progress, and is contract compliant, with logic integrity that correctly calculates planned early and late start and finish dates. These necessary characteristics of all schedules provided by contractors are exactly what NAVFAC scheduling specifications require. Why are credible schedules important? Credible schedules yield consistent and meaningful milestone planning metrics for all stakeholders, result in fair and reasonable time impacts resolved quickly, allow inexcusable impacts to be readily identified and mitigated, result in fewer unresolved claims, and result in less inexcusable schedule growth. How do we get credible schedules? It starts and ends with you. The path to your success in obtaining credible schedules is found within 3 things that you can do. First, use available resources, training, guidelines, contract terms, specifications, mentor-mentee relationships, partnering, etc. These resources are needed to understand the tools you'll use. Second, verify contract compliance and schedule integrity using the contractor checklists and NAVFAC checklists for the baseline schedule and monthly updated schedules. These checklists are self-explanatory and must be used on P6 cost-loaded projects. The NAVFAC checklists are abbreviated in comparison to the contractor checklists. In the event you're involved in a high-vis project, a project that is extremely important to the high command, or assigned a project with a high performance level rating, you will need to address all the items contained within the contractor checklists. This training, combined with the material covered in the baseline schedule training, addresses all checklist items. And the third thing you can do is practice risk management. By regularly using the 60-day longest path schedule update and regularly comparing this to the weekly updated 3-week look-ahead schedule, the project flow should minimize schedule slippage.
All right, and that's it. So I will turn it back over to you, Aaron.
All right, thanks, Mario. Okay, so I got the agenda back up. Hopefully everybody can see that. So again, just giving you a glimpse of you know, what we're putting up front in our training. So that was just a you know, a short snippet of the overall training that NAVFAC's developed, geared towards the construction manager. So that's the target audience for this training. But you know, hopefully gives you guys some insight on what NAVFAC is implementing, and going to this you know, this idea of the credible schedule. And you know, what it means to me is, you know, getting to that point of where people actually want to go to the schedule. They want to.
Aaron, I'm sorry. It looks like the screen hasn't shared. Like, it looks like it's trying to share again, but the agenda hasn't actually come back up yet.
Okay.
I hate to keep interrupting you. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Not a problem. So I'm gonna try to reshare here.
Okay, I think that's it.
Okay, back to the agenda. Can you see that?
Let's see. It might be slow to refresh, but yep, there we go. Good.
Okay. And so this idea of credible schedules and schedules that all stakeholders want to seek out and go to for the essentials of the project, and in particular, you know, the time related, but also other information, you know, as far as you know, the cost distribution. You know, how much cost can we anticipate, and NAVFAC has the term of work in place WIP, and that's our dollars that we need to keep a pulse on, to make sure that, you know, we're getting the resources that we need, and looking into the future. You know, whether that's you know, NAVFAC project team or other resources, you know, to be able to support our projects. So you know, the schedule, you know, has many different aspects of you know, data, of information coming out of it, that may be specific to, you know, how NAVFAC does business. But you know, going back to this idea of credible schedules, that, you know, we want the whole project team, everybody that needs you know, that needs to support that project, that needs to understand where that project is, what the status is, where it's going, can basically say, you know, start off with, where's the schedule? Can I see the schedule? Can you communicate the schedule to me? And I think that's, for me, you know, what's kind of, you know, probably always in front of us, you know, especially on the project level, of continually to, you know, try to set that as an expectation up front. You know, on most of the projects that I, you know, get involved with now, is trying to get to that point. And again, it's more than just a billing tool and a progress record documentation tool, but it's serving the whole project team, you know, for whatever they may need from the schedule. So I had this section here, just kind of attention grabber. The schedule is delaying the project. In some cases, it has a direct, it is directly driving the longest path, or the you know, the longest path, whether it's shown in the schedule or the, you know, the true longest path, just by the requirement that NAVFAC has specific to NAVFAC, is that we need to have a baseline schedule submitted and accepted before construction demolition activities can begin, or in the case of a design build project, we've made that direct link in the UFGS to the design phase starting. So it is there, in the front end of the project. What I see as a hard relationship to basically construction, start of construction to start of design. So in some senses, it may be directly driving the longest path as part of that pre-con that needs to get off of the ground. In a typical project, very, very soon, or in some cases, sooner than a lot of people, think, could be realistic, or, getting to that point where, everybody's comfortable in what's being submitted. So there's that case where, the schedule, in particular, the baseline schedule, is driving the project from, getting to that first milestone of mobilization and construction start. But in a more indirect way, just the idea of, and this is what I see, as far as, the team not being able to be focused on the highest priorities of the project, and that generating inefficiencies, fragmented efforts, where, people don't understand, the clear path forward, going to, project completion. And so oftentimes that's where the schedule is not in place. And Will is acknowledging the fact that we've come, we've come a certain distance from, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, to where we're getting more schedules, more complete compliance with that, basic requirement to have a schedule in place, at least every month of the project. There are still holes in our projects, and something to, be realistic about and try to continue to work on. But there's just, I just see that as kind of a pressing problem. Not one, cure-all, silver bullet for, okay, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to implement to, to make this, be cured. But just to understand that, that is impacting our projects when we don't have the schedule in place. And again, maybe preaching to the choir, because a lot, most of you probably already know that, we need to have our schedules in place on the projects, and there may be different reasons why that's not happening, and it's not just in the the scheduler's hands to make sure that happens. I fully understand that. But then the other situation that I see as far as the schedule is delaying the project is when it comes to changes or pending modifications, as we referred to it, in NAVFAC, where we do need the schedule to be in place as that springboard to go into the time impact analysis. If it's in the moment, we're able to project what this potential mod could be, to be able to at that point in time take the monthly update schedule, and basically take that and go through the TIA process that we have captured in the UFGS, and should be a part of our project specifications. But oftentimes I see where we're actually delaying the project more, because we don't have that that monthly update in place to use as that springboard to build the TIA on, and to get it into the contractor's proposal to provide a full package of, okay, this is what it's going to cost, not just for the direct cost portion of it, but for also the time impacts, which could certainly drive additional costs as far as extended overhead, or any considerations for acceleration, things like that too, that we need to have that as part of the package. And I see that as kind of a current challenge and something that we need to continue to work on. And again, I'm not placing this solely on the position of the designated project scheduler, because I know there's more involved. But I think the more that we can identify these current challenges and these current problems to get ahead of it, I think certainly serve to support our projects, and certainly to understand that going into a project, and hopefully there's some of that even pre-award or shortly after, as resources are being assigned to the project, that that's going to be value added to the project. We might not know exactly when that's going to happen, but I think as many of us know, there's something out there lurking in the dark that's going to jump out, and we're going to have to deal with. But it's just a matter of setting up our controls on the front end and our project requirements. I've got a little bit here on the green zone. That's kind of a buzzword that NAVFAC Pacific. NAVFAC Pacific is the echelon above NAVFAC Hawaii. And they've pushed down direction, of this concept of green zone and pulling efforts to the left as much as possible, getting started earliest, mobilizing the project, not just the physical mobilization, but the administrative mobilization, the pre-con mobilization, and certainly the baseline schedule fits within that, to make sure that we're getting that off the ground as early as is practical. And so we try to capture that in the UFGS, and I'll be the first to acknowledge that the UFGS, while it's intentioned to be a one-size-fits-all, it doesn't always work out that way, because every project is unique, as many of you know, and should be approached based on the unique characteristics of that project. But I think what is key to that, and acknowledging the specifics of that project and the uniqueness of the project, is to at least implement and move towards developing that baseline schedule, and not necessarily having a perfect schedule. In my mind, there's no such thing as a perfect schedule. There's no such thing as a perfect model of either what's known or what is going to be known at some point down in the future, but to get that rolling as soon as possible. And certainly I don't have the visibility on all the challenges. I definitely have my perspectives on the challenges that our projects face, and getting that that off the ground baseline schedule, that first submittal coming in, that it could go outside just the the specific project that we're trying to manage too, but just that identification of what is most critical. And I kind of use the phrase here: go shopping or go digging, or both. Do we need to focus on the procurement of the project, or do we need to focus more on just getting the forces out there, putting shovels in the ground, and starting to move dirt, or demolition, things like that? What is the most critical? Or the schedule may show that both need to be up there in the list of priorities. So that's kind of my caveat to this green zone. As from above, it's coming down. Okay, we need to get all our pre-con submittals in within 30 days or 45 days, and that may change. The timing may change. It may get edited, but the focus is on getting those that pre-con effort up and running, and that's all well intentioned, and I think it's it's definitely a part of it. Getting that documentation, getting that getting the the crews and the resources out there in the field, and start doing something physical. But I feel like I can't emphasize enough, and I think the target audience is more of the the contractors, project managers, their QC managers, their the field personnel, the people that are trying to get this project up and running, that we need this baseline. The sooner the better. Start developing that, and then on top of that, it's the update schedules too, because we need to know the current progress and the current state of the project. So again, I know that that the designated project scheduler on our projects is one person and shouldn't have the sole responsibility in that. But again, just communicating it to the kind of the whole project team. Generally speaking, the prime contractor, as well as the the subcontractors, the NAVFAC team, and just trying to push for that on day one. So what we've got implemented here.
Hey, Aaron, sorry,
yeah.
just to interrupt. Just want to give you a 15-minute warning before we hit the top of the hour.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yep.
And like again, most schedules we're getting some impacts here, and we're pushing on our path here. So just real quickly here, I wanted to give a glimpse of the preliminary scheduling meeting. In this effort to pull the initiation of the schedule to the left as far as possible, and the target is within 14 days of contract award. And I know the challenges with that and the timing, and specifically some of these projects where everybody's busy on other projects, and now they've gotten a new award to make that happen. I know the challenges with that, but it's just pushing that to have those conversations, perhaps before the contractor, before the scheduler gets too far into actually developing the baseline schedule, to set those expectations up front, and to go through the several items here that we have as part of the agenda. From where's the contractor in their current schedule status and the development of the baseline. Let's go back and look at the schedule specifications. Some people may have seen the specifications, some people may not have. So just kind of a logical way to work through that discussion that I feel strongly needs to happen more often on our projects sooner, as opposed to, oh, we've got an impact here, where's our schedule? Okay, we'll start to update our schedule now. And so at that point, it's it's too late. And I do see that happening, what I consider too far or too frequent. I know we're getting down to the end here. So time impact analysis, and each one of these sections could be their own lengthy discussion, lengthy presentation in their own. So just wanted to kind of hit on some of the main things here, and what may have some room for improvement. So I see time impact analysis referred to in the general sense. I see many different understandings of time impact analysis out there in the project management world. But just wanted to focus in that again, NAVFAC has the UFGS. A part of the UFGS, there's a specific process for time impact analysis. Just to give some insight, a little bit between the the lines of what's stated in the UFGS, is it's intended to be a simplified forward-looking analysis, and it's not a one-size-fits-all. So I do see that misunderstanding translating to perhaps some situations that it goes above and beyond just a simple time impact analysis. Not to say that can't be a starting point, but when impacts compound, when they get accumulated with multiple impacts, they span multiple months, even years, and that goes into something much more above and beyond just take the last update that was accepted, insert a fragment, and get your impacted schedule. And I think that's that needs to be communicated out there to the contractors as well, that there's more to it than just you know, what they may be expecting a designated project scheduler to go and complete in you know, an hour's worth of time. That, you know, that might not be, although a starting point, it may not be, you know, enough justification to, you know, fully, you know, provide the you know, the full analysis of what transpired, you know, when it comes to how the longest path has changed over multiple months. And so, you know, of course, the AACE has their, you know, their white papers, you know, specific to TIA, and they make the designation between the TIA and then also the forensic schedule analysis. But I'm realistic in you know, the abilities and the experience and, you know, the expertise that's out there. It's just communicating that to the you know, to the project managers that are just, you know, how much is it going to cost me to prepare this, and when can I get it, you know. Okay, it's like, okay, wait a minute, let's first talk about, you know, what the expectations are. And so definitely that needs to happen, you know, with NAVFAC too. And I think, you know, the more that can happen, the better, so that everybody understands what's involved. And again, TIAs are coming in late to the discussion for, you know, proposals for changes. I see that consistently, you know, happening on our projects where, you know, direct costs are you know, are submitted by the contractor, but then, you know, sometime down the line, it's like, oh, well, wait a minute, we've got time impacts, and you know, we consider this, you know, time impact compensable, excusable, and compensable. So we've got, you know, additional costs, when, you know, really we need all that up front, and we need the TIAs to come in, you know, with the, you know, the complete package for, you know, in response to the RFPs. So again, it's, you know, communicating this, you know, the current challenges and the rooms for improvement. Future NAVFAC schedule projections. So we're headed to cloud-based P6. So as far as I know, we've got the funding for from NAVFAC headquarters. So just, you know, may not directly you know, impact how you know, you folks may be supporting the projects, but hopefully, you know, that will allow us to, you know, be more flexible, be more responsive, be more collaborative. The hope is that maybe, you know, at some time down the road, there is, you know, shared access where, you know, there's one central you know, location for upload and access to our project schedules. You know, that may you know, circumvent some of the challenges with, you know, just emails, and now we've got this ECMS system, and, you know, and so if we have one central base for our project schedules, I think that's going to help. And like I said, you know, the hope is that there, you know, sometime down the road, there may be a way to give, you know, contractors access to that, you know, for upload and for access, for comments, so that we can, you know, more so have a centralized, you know, location for our schedules. Integration of risk. We're looking to, you know, implement more of that into our schedules, whether we, you know, we set up a column or user defined field for risks, you know, related to our activities, or, you know, we go to some software, you know, like Acumen Fuse. So, you know, we're looking for, you know, more integration of risk into our schedule management. And then just overall schedule management into project management. And just one you know, lasting thought before I turn over to questions and answers, and just some project experience. So I you know, I'm discussing a project with a construction manager, and this is not pointing the finger to the construction manager, but just kind of a sign of where people are at, where the whole project team is at, and asking them, you know, what's going on with the project, and they're like, you know, they're identifying the main issues that are ongoing, and they're like, yeah, we just came out of a series of you know, what they were portraying as important high-level meetings, you know, with leadership. And you know, I'm always coming from the perspective of, you know, where are the schedules? So I'm asking, you know, so did you guys discuss the schedule and how these you know, pressing issues and these current issues are, may have an impact of the schedule, or at least identification of what aspects of the project these issues may be impacting. And so the basic, the gist of the response was, no, the schedules were not involved. We did not, see the schedules. We did not talk about the schedules, but there's going to be another schedule meeting scheduled at a later time to discuss the schedules. So I think it just is kind of like a microcosm showing kind of the disconnect. And I know there's a time and place for schedules and bringing in the details of the schedule, but my expectation is that there's at least some some glimpse into, even if it's just the milestone section of the WBS, or just the longest path of the schedule, the current schedule, that's brought into those so-called important meetings, high-level meetings. So I'll leave it off with that, and I apologize, with the technical issues. We're pressing on the questions and discussion. I'm available, so I don't have a hard stop at 1 o'clock. If anybody feels the need to reach out to me, feel free to send me an email. I say if anybody has project related questions, to go through the proper channels, the point of contact, particularly the CM for that project, to discuss project specific scheduling requirements. But if anybody has general questions on NAVFAC organization, or just basic UFGS requirements, feel free to reach out to me. But if people can stick around more than the 1 o'clock cutoff time, just feel free, and I can be available. So Mario, is there any chat questions?
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. So first of all, thank you for the presentation. A lot of good stuff in there, and thanks to everyone here for joining us. I understand we are pushing up against the end of the hour, so if you do need to drop, we appreciate you joining us. I do have two questions that did come in through chat. First, as you said, we had some technical issues, so some folks were wondering if we could get a copy of your XCR file that you used as your presentation, in light of having a PowerPoint. Is that something you'd be able to share with folks?
Yeah, so I'll export the XCR out, and then I have a notebook report that I can send out as a PDF too.
Okay, yeah. If you'll send that to me, and then I'll make sure that it gets sent out to our group. Okay.
Yeah.
Then another question came through. So you'd mentioned the possibility of going to P6 on the cloud. We were curious, has there been any discussions of using OPC, Oracle Primavera Cloud, by either NAVFAC or contractors?
So where I'm at, I don't understand enough of the different maybe versions of the cloud, but from what I know, for security reasons, NAVFAC needs to have it. They need to have it located in a NAVFAC certified cloud. So I'm not sure if that's something different than what what the question focuses in on. But we're kind of at the forefront too, and hopefully I'll have some more information to share with our partners out there, including you folks. And certainly if people have some input, I'm welcome to that too. But I don't understand enough of the terminology, to say even what what specific version or product that NAVFAC is considering. Other than it's going to be cloud based, it's going to be internet based, where people are going to have username and password that they can access through the internet, through the cloud, as opposed to standalone. That's where NAVFAC is right now, standalone, P6 on their machines.
Right. Yep. Yeah, that makes sense. So, but in terms of perhaps contractors using other products and still being able to interact with NAVFAC, is that part of the discussion as well?
Yeah. So one of the goals is for the contractors area to be able to talk with the government area. Now, I think the question is kind of opening up and I think this is the beauty of just communication, because I wasn't even thinking of it in terms of that, of just providing a link between perhaps two systems, that may be able to be integrated or cross-talking. Once I kind of present that to somebody that has has an involvement with security, government security, DoD security, the quick and short of that may be absolutely not. So, but I appreciate the question, in the sense that it at least allows me to know that there may be something out there, that a link could be made to contractors, system or contractors area of P6.
Okay, great. I do have another question that came through. It's a three-parter, so maybe we'll kind of just go straight through them here. First question is on quantity loading. Would you use material resource with a unit of measure, or would you prefer to use a user-defined field for quantity?
Okay, yeah, well, that's a big question. So even when you talk about like resources, the specs are pretty much open, and actually the unit cost, the breakdown is in terms of expenses. It actually uses the word, the term expenses. So I understand that different contractors have different ways, and schedulers have different ways and preferences of how they set up their schedules. But kind of just backing up, maybe one level, from that specific question is, even the decision between resources and expenses, and first of all, saying that NAVFAC doesn't say you have to use resources or you have to use expenses, but the intent there is to make sure that there is some breakdown when contractors are expecting to partial pay. So it's kind of an optional, kind of an option in a sense, depending if a contractor wants to bill for partial completion, as opposed to they are 100% done and more of a lump sum type of cost loading approach. So I know I might not be answering the specific question, but at least to give you the sense that NAVFAC doesn't necessarily have a preference. But what I will say is that on the whole, I do see more challenges and I don't know if you call them glitches or bugs, or what differences between what the contractor sees on their side and what NAVFAC sees when we finally import the schedules. There seems to be more opportunities for disconnect when resources are used as opposed to expenses. And I know that as far as the contractor system, resources may be 100% bought into, or expenses may be 100% bought into. But if I had a recommendation, it would be to consider expenses perhaps over resources, if that option did exist. So I know I'm not giving the yes or no specific breakdown, or whether materials and the breakdown of the resources is preferred. I say there is no preference on that.
Yeah, no, there's no one right answer, I don't think. I mean, that's certainly been my experience as well, so you're not wrong.
Yeah.
I do have a second part to this one. Any explanation on why the steps function is used?
So,
Would it be the rationale behind using steps?
Yeah, so it's going to be kind of a gotcha on this question, because it's been a while since I've gone back to that one, and understanding how that actually works out in the end. But I believe that the steps, it may create more uniformed, kind of like a in between, middle of the road distribution of costs along that activity, to where it it translates into like the S curve in the overall distribution of costs in that schedule variance diagram that's required, you know, as part of the reporting. So that may be, you know, where the steps is kind of a middle of the road. And certainly I understand that it can get, you know, more complicated than just, you know, the kind of the default. I think there's a default steps setting in P6, as opposed to more of a manual that, you know, based on the actual specifics of that activity. This is the, you know, this is, you know, better model of the cost distribution within that activity. But what I'll say on settings too is that at some point there was a decision that was made on settings, and so there's like many of you probably know, there's trade-offs between different settings that NAVFAC you know, includes, but more so, you know, collectively on the settings is you know, just the consistency that you know, we have one set of settings that should be applied consistently across the board. Now I think we're always open to getting input on what makes the most sense. So if, you know, if whoever, you know, had that question, you know, of why, if they have, you know, specific input on, you know, if there's a better way that, you know, could work, you know, on a global scale for everybody, that you know, may still meet that requirement of you know, kind of a middle of the road, you know, kind of evenly, you know, cost distribution of costs along an activity. You know, again, I'm all for that. You know, feel free to contact me.
Okay, and I did put your email address in the chat window for everyone. And just for the folks that are listening, I'll also include that in our follow-up email once we get the presentation from Aaron. I'll include that for everyone as well. Okay, one other question that came through. Could you describe, I guess, a little bit about the different offices that are managing a schedule? So we know a bit about your position, but is there a central schedule person, or is it multiple offices that all manage a single schedule? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so actually I had the so this is our internal SharePoint site that we set up for NAVFAC, but just to give you guys a glimpse, and I don't know if I'm even sharing my screen still, but I can just kind of speak to it too. So I'm one member of, I was trying to get a quick count, but over 10 different FECs worldwide. So starting with headquarters, there's a point of contact at headquarters, but it's really a decentralized group where there's no, you know, just, you know, one person that's, you know, kind of a head figure, and they're, you know, where all the decisions you know, go through and ultimately be made by. It's basically shared and consensus among the schedule working groups of all the different FECs, facility engineering commands. So you know, Hawaii is one of those. Northwest is another under NAVFAC Pacific, and so that's kind of everything in the Pacific region, and actually east of the Mississippi is covered under NAVFAC PAC. Everything, or sorry, west of the Mississippi is part of NAVFAC PAC, and everything east of the Mississippi is NAVFAC Atlantic. So there's kind of these two big echelons there, and each do have a representative on those two echelons, and certainly have more area of responsibility, you know, for the facility engineering commands that fall under that. But it's really a collaborative approach to to setting, to creating processes, setting requirements, updating the UFGS. But if you guys can still see my screen, these are all the people that are involved.
Yes,
or in my same, in the same position that I hold, basically across the globe. And so as our projects become more decentralized and not so much geographically bound by which office you sit in, people may end up supporting projects all across the globe. And I've certainly been pulled into supporting projects in Guam and Europe, and so people are understanding that it's not just that person that's assigned to that position, but and just making sure that I answer the question too, if that gives enough kind of a glimpse into just kind of the different parts that make up the overall organization from the schedule management standpoint. And so most typical, each one of these people that are assigned to each one of these FECs, they'll be the key they'll be the key support for that FEC, that region. But like I said, there may be some specific need to pull in some bandwidth and kind of cross cross the areas here, and for some of these people to support other areas in themselves. But for the most part, like for me, I'm supporting NAVFAC Hawaii, which is Marine Corps Base Hawaii, Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam, PMRF, and some of the outlying smaller bases in the area.
Awesome, thank you. I think that's it, unless anyone does have another question. Maybe if you wanted to come off mute and ask directly. Otherwise, we'll think about wrapping up here.
I have one quick question, if I could.
Sure.
By the way, Aaron, thank you so much for coming. I've always had thought very highly of your work, and you do a really good job there at NAVFAC. Do you sense that there's any problem or conflict in having the schedule management and the invoice process one process? In other words, do you see any type of conflict of interest in trying to get paid and trying to update the schedule?
Yes, and likewise, I also see the benefits. Not to say that I have perfect visibility on all those whether you call them challenges or drawbacks, or even on the other the positive side, the benefits of that. But recently, just to give some background, it was a way to give more. I don't know if leverage is a good word. I mean, sometimes that could be viewed as in a negative sense, but give more more momentum to this effort of making schedules more prevalent, more a part of how we do business. And so and part of that was to make it more a part of the the invoicing and the billing cycle. And in some ways, the intent was to to alleviate some of the additional work that was kind of shared between updating the schedule and in particular the cost loaded schedule and the earned value management, and also getting the billings put together and packaged and submitted. In particular, the what was and still generally referred to as the schedule of prices or schedule of values. There's another term out there too that kind of get all mixed up in this, but really providing the backup to the billing. And I do see it's still occurring out there where in addition to the earned value report, there's also the, a separate spreadsheet for schedule of prices, schedule of values, and estimate for voucher. That's the other one that's out there, and a kind of a combination of, legacy tools, legacy, Excel spreadsheets that we've had out there and people have used in the past, and kind of gets, roped in, based on, the ET saying, oh yeah, this is what I always see, and I need this document, and so by the time we know, we realize that we've got 3 or 4, documents that basically should serve the same purpose. So there was some, trying to merge that effort and tried to make it more efficient in some ways. But yes, I do understand the challenges, and especially when, and this goes back to the FAR too. And so, some of this is just going back to the FAR and how the FAR connects, payment and, the ability of the government to, to retain or to, not process payments. And I'm not citing it, probably so well, but just the overall point is, it's kind of rooted in the FAR too, of, how schedules provide that substance, that justification that the project is making, adequate progress toward the end, toward the completion of the contract, and that tie really, being ingrained in the FAR, and maybe perhaps being an offshoot of, how it's translated down into the UFGS and then in that price and payment section of the USFGS, as well as the the schedule side, and tying it to, to invoicing. It's always my intent to try to make it as efficient and seamless as possible, and to get ahead of things as much as possible, so that the first and foremost, the schedules are in place, that that data is just a matter of, it's there, and it's just another report, and that it's the tool that consistently shows that the contractor is making adequate progress, or in the case that it's not making, the project overall isn't making adequate progress, that it now provides a springboard for the contractor saying, hey, we're not able to make adequate progress because there are these changes, there are these potential changes, that we need resolution on, and it's, it's either currently directly impacting X, Y, and Z, or it's just about to, or it may have, in the case where, the project isn't showing adequate progress, that the schedule should be there to provide that justification, and the whole project can move on, and it doesn't come to the point where it's like, the government needs to go to a defensive standpoint and say, okay, we know that the project isn't proceeding like it should be, and on top of that, we don't have the schedules in place. So we're, so in the shoes of the government, it's kind of like the government's in the dark, not knowing exactly what it is, that's impacting the project. And I understand that it can be a mixed bag. It certainly can be the government is standing in the way. The government needs to resolve something, but it does go back to, the schedules providing that justification, to show the adequate progress, and then, with that in the FAR, the link to the, to the invoicing. So I don't know if that gets to where you need Nick on that one, but at least just maybe some more understanding of where that's coming from, and certainly aware of the challenges that may cause.
Yeah, I think that the issue is that sometimes the I found that the government will use payments to influence the contractor's schedule. In other words, you don't get paid unless you show no delay. They don't come out and say that. But if your schedule is showing delays or showing, then it's commonly rejected, and then you don't get paid, and it becomes an issue where, well, unless we show that we're, everything's rosy, we're not going to get paid, and that becomes an issue. And so I do think that that's something that the Navy and the Army, by the way, should try to seek resolution when that occurrence comes, when that happens, so that you don't sacrifice the schedule. The schedule should not be sacrificed, and it should reflect, on the left of the data date what actually occurred, and on the right of the data date what you're actually planning. And if we can get to that point, irrespective of whether you're getting paid or not, that should be the goal.
Yeah, thanks for that additional statement, and yeah, I'm on board that, and I fully acknowledge that, and it's something that I continually have to communicate on the government side. And certainly, there's always something that could possibly be clarified in our specs, but I think most important is just the continued communication, and yes, first and foremost, the schedule should show actual progress, and certainly that actual progress may involve and be related to a pending change. And so yeah, left of the data date, we should be showing the as-built conditions as it actually progressed. I think where there's more challenges is handling that process of getting acceptance on the future part of the change. And I think key to that is the TIA process. And like I alluded to before, is what's in the mix of that is the the contract required time impact analysis, but realizing that we don't always have our schedules in lockstep, to be able to insert and to use that as a springboard right away. That sometimes that jams it up, and so that's where the government may, I feel like they may be able to go back to the contractor and say, hey, we realize that there's a change here, but we need your contract required process here, and not necessarily saying that, we're not going to, acknowledge that there's a change condition, because of course, there's the changes clause in the contract. There's opportunities to deal with changes when they occur, but crucial to that is that time impact analysis. And so I think there's some sensitivity to how that process comes together, and I think some more communication on all parts between the contractor and the government as this potential change is identified that could have an impact to the schedule. That we get on board with each other as quickly as possible and say, okay, what is this going to look like, and not necessarily automatically put that into the to the update schedule as far as that future work, because that's where it could, I think the positions could differ greatly, as far as the expectations, and certainly the contractor has their their end of the spectrum as far as trying to say, okay, this is everything that we know about it, and we're going to try to take as conservative approach on it as possible, and I think there's value to that, just getting everything on the table, but could differ greatly from what the government thinks as far as how the work should unfold, whether the project can absorb delay to the project completion, but I think that's something that everybody can work on as far as that communication and that process and filling in the gaps, and not necessarily filled in by just looking to the guide specs, and so again, that's something that I continually communicate to the project team that I support, on my side. But yeah, appreciate the question.
Yes, thank you, Aaron. So we do have one last question in the chat that I see a person has their hand raised, Tony. So just a heads up, let's go ahead and out of respect for everyone's time, say that this is the last question. But as Aaron was generous enough to share his contact information with us, I'll make sure that that's available to you all. So if you do have general questions or thoughts or questions about his perspective on things, you can certainly follow up with him after this. So Tony, if you had a question, go ahead.
Yes, so I'll try to be real quick. Any thoughts or recommendations on as-builting the logic? We record actual starts, actual finishes, and we document the progress. And I see a lot of out-of-sequence works, and sometimes in the, stuff in the past, it doesn't really affect things. But I've also done some reading that, there's some recommendations to say, as-built your logic to say, this is really how we built it. But then I'm stuck explaining logic changes in the narrative and stuff. So any thoughts or recommendations of what NAVFAC likes to see there?
Yeah, so going back to the specs, it's kind of our guide. I certainly have my individual perspective, but I'm generally in line with the thinking that the schedule, whether it's an update schedule, or as-built schedule, showing any progress, that it should be aligned with, and in much, as much aligned as reasonably expected or even useful, to incorporate any logic changes, including the relationships, to show that in fact that finish to start relationship that was initially built into the baseline schedule and carried through numerous updates to the point that that series of activities actually made progress, to show that it was actually a start to start relationship, for example. That should be as a basic understanding, that should be changed into the as-built progress, whether that's an update schedule left of the data date, or finally, of course, to the working toward the as-built schedule, the final schedule at the end. And so I'm always trying to take into perspective too, like what is the usefulness of that, because I do see what I think needs to be kept in mind with all that too. And again, I don't ever expect that the schedule is going to be a perfect representation of exactly what happened, and that anybody looking in the schedule can know exactly what happened, and even when activities exactly started, to exact days or hours of the day, things like that. But I think there needs to be a reasonable point to get to your schedule to, that I see translate into the resolution of time impacts, where oftentimes it comes back to bite us, where we find that there was a lot of out of sequence work, and those relationships weren't changed, that gives us perhaps a different view, or kind of a clouded view on what was the actual longest path during those periods of delay and impact that need to be assessed. So I think that needs to be considered. But generally, to answer your question, I do expect that those logic changes have to be, or should be, made. Unfortunately, yeah, that does translate to additional work by the designated scheduler, or the project team that's working on the schedule. But I do believe that it's also a representation of perhaps how good the plan was starting out with too. And certainly I see a lot of schedules possibly taking the shortcut of just all finish to start relationships, and that could be certainly a more conservative approach too, as well as just being able to copy that same typical sequence and logic from one activity to the next. So it's kind of like, you know, whether you put that into the front side or along the way, you know, that work is, you know, that work is going to be there. But just kind of, you know, to the point that kind of have to have the foresight of, you know, how that might change things. And that's not always perfectly clear, especially if, you know, you're dealing with, you know, delays that have happened in the past. You know, it wasn't really recognized what it was actually doing. You have to going back and things like that. But I think it needs to be one of the considerations. But I think you hit on, you know, something that I'm constantly dealing with too on my end is communicating to, you know, the project team that I support, that it is expected that there's going to be logic changes along the way, and I still have to take away that, you know, that misunderstanding that, you know, once something's set in the baseline, you can't change it, you know.
Yes.
So I'm having to, you know, kind of redirect that thinking too, and you know, that certainly could be rooted in different things and, you know, many years of experience, but just to communicate that is natural.
Yes.
that logic changes are natural. Plans change, things come up, unforeseens come up, you know, but that's what the schedule needs to respond to. And yeah, some months you're going to have, you know, you know, more of the replanning, you know, going back to more planning as opposed to just, you know, scheduling, updating. So
very good. Appreciate it.
yeah.
Excellent. All right, folks. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. It was a great presentation. We appreciate your participation, Aaron. Thanks for your time, especially going, you know, the extra mile to stick around for the questions right after. So we appreciate your joining us today. Like I said, I guess whenever we do have the presentation materials that you're willing to share with us, I'll get those out to the group as well. So I'll take care of that for you. Once again, thank you, and have a great weekend, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Cheers, guys. Take
Thanks,
care.
guys.
Thank you.
Nice job. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks all.